Hey, hello everyone, and like to welcome you back to this edition of UB Presents the Black Notes. I'm Leon Mallet with my two organizers in arms, Mr. Irie Hodges and Mr. Matt Clayton. Today's notes, we are going to be discussing government layoffs. That's been a very big topic going around recently, and we just want to kind of give people insight regarding what is going on pertaining to the government layoffs that have hit the country pretty severely. Um, Obviously, politics are involved, but the biggest thing is that anytime somebody's laid off, you're messing with somebody's livelihood, which is their ability to ultimately provide for their families and put food on their table. Just from your guys' perspective, in terms of the layoffs, can you guys give feedback in terms of, why do you feel these layoffs ultimately have been coming in terms of decisions made with this current administration?
I guess I could take this one. I think there's a few reasons. I think three. I think one is it's also about cutting the budget as much as they possibly can for the tax cuts. I think that's a huge thing. Really cutting the budget for the tax cuts. I think secondly, it's almost a pissing contest. I think even with Musk, he said, "Hey, I'm gonna cut these jobs," and they want to get rid of a certain amount of the work, for the workforce. And Musk is very relentless. I mean, even with some of his crazy tactics, you see how he was able to be successful in business. I mean, the dude's just relentless, right? And I think it's just becoming a piston contest. Now, I think the third thing and why it's happening is that people don't really talk that much about this, is that it's coming from the tech industry. The tech industry has a certain ideology that I think even the finance industry doesn't have. I think it's that famous quote by Zuckerberg: managers managing managers who manage managers. So their natural instinct is to always think there's waste, right? Think about tech. Every time tech was creating something, what was their main thing? Making it more efficient, right? You know, we want to like disrupt this industry. So there is this thought process that it's all this waste. Now, fundamentally, the question is, can government operate like business? No, it can't. And government definitely can't operate like tech. But I think those are the three biggest reasons you see these government layoffs.
Matt, can I ask you a quick question regarding that? When you
Yeah.
say with the tech industry, do you feel like people in the tech industry almost cannibalize themselves? Because obviously, these AI and different things that are, basically taking over their people's job was created by these people who are involved in these sectors. Do you feel that that was a situation where
Sorry.
Hey, you
people
all
may
right,
have
homie?
cannibalized themselves as far as doing their job so well that they may have put themselves, and I'm not saying that it's a good
Mm.
thing or an excuse, but that they may have actually put themselves potentially out of a job by doing their job so well.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, bro. No, you know what? I say this too when it comes to business, and I think this is just a fundamental, what I'm saying. So stay with me, everybody. I say this real fast. I think we really think about nowadays, we think about tech giants, we think about Jeff Bezos, we think about Zuckerberg, we think about Musk, we think about all these kind of pioneers of business, right? But we don't understand historically what how they compare to ones from the past. So what I mean by that is like the tech industry is very different than, the Thomas Edison's. It's very different than, the Henry Ford's. Is very different than, who are some of the other ones that we remember? Who's the dude from Steel, the Steel guy? You know what I'm talking about, like
Vanderbilt,
Vanderbilt, I think was the railroad, but
Row. Yeah,
all
yeah.
Vanderbilts, what I'm saying? What's my man from Standard Oil? Rockefeller, Carnegie, and all these other guys, right? They actually created infrastructure that created more and more and more and more and more jobs. They created millions and
And millions.
millions of jobs. So, and they actually created a lot of the infrastructure that led to what we have now. The tech industry, while it did create some things, it kind of cannibalizes things at some point, right? It created some benefit, obviously, initially, but I think at this point, it's just tearing down other industries. And I'm not sitting there saying that it doesn't make things efficient. I think tech has done a great job, but it fundamentally doesn't have the net positive to the overall quality of life to people in terms of job creation that the previous things had. So I think baked into technology, to your point, Leon, the question you asked, yeah, it is this thing that it just kind of creates less and less and less jobs. It does. It just that's just what it does.
Yeah, I want to jump in here and say real quick. I'm gonna be honest, man. Like the billionaires, they have their agenda, and the American people have their
Mm.
agenda. When you talk about waste, fraud, and abuse, most Americans would agree. Like, yeah, everybody can agree that the government got waste, fraud, and abuse, and you can cut around the margins to kind of shore that up. But what billionaires, what they're thinking is that, oh, this is just another tool in our tool belt to be able to extract resources from the federal government. Now, I'm thinking, if I'm the everyday American, I'm thinking, man, I'm tired of this fraud, waste, and abuse. I'm tired of them using our taxpaying dollars to fund some project that we don't know about. And I think
Yeah,
that's the thing that they probably really feel like, where is my money going? I'm paying all these FICA taxes and all this other stuff. Where is my money really going?
yeah, yeah,
So I think we need more transparency in government for sure.
yeah.
But again, the billionaires, they use this as a way to say, hey, how can we take more money from the government? How can we take more resources? How can we take more power? Whereas the everyday American is just thinking like, hey, you know what? I'm paying into taxes. I don't really see the benefit. What? So I think that's the two issues that we're having here. So the billionaires, obviously, they're going to use it to their advantage and get what they want to get out of this. But I think the American people are like, all
Mm.
right, yeah, we want fraud, waste, and abuse to be weeded out, but we don't want like seeing my neighbor or seeing my coworker or someone I went to church with laid off their job because of some pissing contest. And I think everybody, us, including people that's watching this, you know, you're 1 or 2 degrees separated from somebody that's been impacted by this Doge government efficiency, cutting jobs, head hunting match, this witch hunt. So I think we all been impacted by this, and a lot of people, even President Trump's supporters, would even admit this too, that they didn't sign up for this. They didn't really sign up. Some of them say it's cool, but most of them, again, they just wanted fraud, waste, and abuse to be weeded out. And a lot of people, Americans, can agree with that. But the billionaires, they looking at this as a quick play to get as much money, power, and influence.
Now, Ari, just following up on one thing you said when you said more transparency, do you feel that it's necessarily, it may not be a sense of non-transparency versus people just are not realizing what's going on? And the reason why I say this is because I'm coming down to, I hate to say it, military spending.
Mm.
I think that and don't take this as me degrading our veterans. I love our veterans. Without them, I'm not being able to go to McDonald's or drink some water, or all the freedoms that I definitely
You still
appreciate them
going to
for.
McDonald's, bro?
No, I don't, but I have the option to because people sacrifice their life.
McD.
Because
McD.
people sacrifice their life. But just
I
there's a
went there
lot of
earlier today, though. I ain't gonna lie, but yeah.
hey, their breakfast is do be bang. No front on
It
that.
does, it
But
does.
just best from the perspective of our spending. Obviously, they say we spend just as much as the next 10 countries combined.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need to create, all these tanks where 60 to 70% of them may never even get used?
Yeah. So
That's what, to me, that's a situation where there may be some wasteful spending where we can cut stuff like that, because we have this military complex. And I just wanted your thoughts on, do you feel that it's a situation where they're saying they're not being transparent, or something like the military where it's out there, but people just may not be addressing it?
well, of course, of course, of course. That's the way I look at it, of course. But here's the thing. I'll just put it this way. If they really wanted to weed out fraud, waste, and abuse, they would start with their own like subsidies that they get, their own government contracts that they're getting. They're picking on the little people. You know what I'm saying? They're picking on the vet, the person that's working at the VA or the person that's doing research, cancer research. They're picking on little folks. Why not go with the big chunk, where the big part of the waste, fraud, and abuse is? Like you said, to your point, it's in the military. But guess what? They're buddies, they're friends, they're getting the lobbyists, the special interests. They want it to be this way. They want this. They want these to be this way. So my thing is, if they was really serious about government efficiency, they would start with, especially Elon Musk. Let's start with his subsidies. Let's start with his government contracts. Where can we cut some stuff there? They not cutting around there. They cutting on everybody else. They talking about cutting Medicaid, man. Come on, man. Like Medicaid, Like, bro, I
Yeah,
grew up on Medicaid. Like, I
yeah,
know
man.
everybody here knows somebody that's been impacted by that or had Medicaid. And I will say this, 65% of red states are getting Medicaid, right? Their people are on
Yeah.
Medicaid. So Medicaid is a big thing. 40% of children are on Medicaid. So my thing is if you're gonna cut waste, fraud, and abuse, why are you going to where the people need it the most? Like to your point, Leon, I mean, if you're gonna do some cuts, cut it where it should be cut, like the military, like to your point.
For sure. Now, Matt, I did want to ask you this question, and we're gonna be real. If you don't feel comfortable answering it, that's fine as well. Obviously, your spouse works for the VA.
Yeah.
Can you give feedback in terms of maybe either her or some of her colleagues in terms of what they're feeling right now based on some of these cuts that the government has made?
Well, I think I'll say this too, just in general, and just from just talking to her. I think it's just they're just trying to they're just trying to figure out what's going on. I think that's really what mostly what it is. It's just, like I know it's a lot of conversation between probationary, essential, non-essential. And I think, and I think to be fair, my mom worked, God rest her soul, my mom worked for the VA as well too back in the day. I think it's just, she worked for VA. I mean, it's weird. I tell this to people. My mom worked for the VA during the financial crash, and obviously it impacted us, the financial crash, in terms of it impacted everybody. But her job was secure. It wasn't something that impacted her day-to-day job. So I think what it really is that um, they're just not used to this level of change and like policies and things like that. It kind of disrupts the day-to-day flow of the work and things like that. So I think that's really I think it's kind of confusion. People are nervous. People are worried, and I also think people, don't really understand what's happening. I think what you said, Ivy, really kind of highlights what's really, really, really happening in terms of behind the scenes. And I will also add this part too. I think to add on, I think Ivy made a good point. People think this is about smaller government, but it's really not. I mean, the best business in town is the government in terms of getting paid. So a lot of this is other reasons, but just overall, I just think a lot of people are just kind of nervous trying to figure out what's going on. Well, yeah.
For sure, for sure. So, I mean, moving forward, obviously, where do you think, how deep do you guys think this is going to go? Obviously, we're what just a little over a month with this administration, and all these massive changes have already hit. Like, how far do you think this is potentially going to go?
Yeah, I'm gonna say like to Matt's point, Elon is a relentless dude. I remember that dude told the Twitter employees when he was blowing up Twitter, he was saying things like if you're not willing to be hardcore, he used the word hardcore, talking about working for Twitter, then you might as well just go ahead and quit. And I think he was just giving people all types of weird, random assignments, all kind of stuff. Like the dude is kind of whacked out. I think at this point, only
Mm.
person that can rein him in is President Trump himself. Now, that's a question within ourselves. Why is President Trump not reining him in? Why is he allowing him to have so much access? I mean, is it a pay for play thing? I mean, the man did drop $280 million on President Trump. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
280
Now,
millions
yeah, and
and
billions. So, hey, I think it's gonna stop. The bus stops with the president. So as long as the president of the United States is allowing this, Congress can't do anything about it. Nobody else can do anything about this. This is going to be strictly Trump's situation. Trump is going to have to put a stop to this. And I think when that time will happen is when his poll numbers start to really sink. Because as you notice, they are starting to go down and down and down. And I think once they hit a certain threshold, because Trump wants to be liked. To be honest, man, Trump wants to be liked. He wants to be America's best president, as he would say, the best president in a lot. He won all that
yeah.
stuff. So I don't think he's just gonna let his numbers go down because of Elon. Like this is his last term. So I would say Trump, the buck stops with Trump. But the question is, will Trump do anything about it? That's the question.
Well, I do want to add something like that real quickly, if I can. I think when it comes to the government layoffs, I think a lot of stuff is going back and forth to the courts. I think that this is just the tip of the iceberg. You know what I'm saying? Because like some of the government agencies do have unions and things like that, which means they have a lot more protections than the general population of private sector. So I do think that what's happening in the public sector, there will be ripples in the private sector. You already saw it from the beginning. So obviously, there's been an attack on DEI. So obviously, at some point, universities and things like that have been doing DEI, they're gonna have pressure to let certain people go. We saw Joy Reid get fired. Last few days, you saw Joy Reid get fired. So I think what's going to end up happening is that just imagine if you got a merger, major news place got a merger and says, you know what? I don't like those people. They talk bad about me. You know what I'm saying? Lay them off. Like I think that this layoff craze. I mean, we talking so much about public layoffs and everybody stopped talking about the TikTok craze, the people sitting in front of the computer getting laid off their tech jobs. Like that was a huge thing. These layoffs are happening, across the board, man. And it's a lot. I mean, what makes the public sector and the government stuff, because those weren't places that had mass layoffs, but this is happening across the country in the private sector. It's just not talked about. So I think this is a huge issue, and then people are not getting those same type of jobs. I know you and me were talking before. It's a huge thing about people who are out of the job market not making what they used to make. Getting laid off from $150,000 a year jobs, driving Uber and Lyft. This is a massive issue, that stems not just from the federal government employment, it's just happening in the private sector. It's happening across the United States. So I think and it's weird, because it puts more pressure on a lot of the services that people are trying to gut. So I mean, it's a nasty domino effect, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and I don't think you got to worry too much about Elon, because I think he's going to be busy, because obviously he has millions and millions of emails
Yeah.
to read through from the federal government employees who are supposed to reply to tell them how productive they were. So,
But don't forget, it's a Leon, it's an algorithm for that.
Yeah, they use
oh, okay. I thought
AI.
he's not going through them one by one.
That's an algorithm. No, it's an
Yeah, it's
algorithm for
all
that.
algorithms and AI. But even with that, that's beside the point. That it's not the point of what you've been doing. The point is to humiliate people. The point is to be a bully. The point is to just make people. He's flexing right now. That's all he's doing.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah,
he's
yeah.
just flexing on people, and he's flexing and saying, "Look, I bought this presidency. I do what I want to do. I can bring my kid into the White House. I can have him rub boogers all on the Resolute desk. I run this presidency." Believe it or not, I saw the dude. I watched. He was in the secretary cabinet meeting with the president today, and everybody else in suits, everybody looking professional, ready. They ready. They got the talking points. They got the notepad. They ready to go. And next thing Elon just walking there with like a shirt that says tech support. That's the name. He had a shirt that said tech support. Like he's trolling the federal government, the American people, the president of the United States. The dude is just out of control. Somebody got to put a stop to him. And my question is to President Trump, when are you going to put a stop to this, man? Like, do you want your poll numbers to keep sinking? Do you want to be the best president ever lived? Do you want to have better numbers than President Obama? Hey, man, I don't think this is the way to do it.
Yeah. All I gotta say is all blessings to everybody who has been laid off. I know it's a tough situation to be in. Prices are high for a lot of things, and being able to provide for your family isn't an easy thing these days under normal circumstances, let alone when you don't have any income coming in. So um, prayers for everybody who's has been laid off, albeit in the private sector or the public sector. Keep your head high, and we're definitely gonna be praying that you can recover and hopefully bounce back and get back to where you were. So we just like to thank everyone for taking the time out to watch our video today. Please make sure to like, follow, share, and subscribe to all of our social media platforms to get real-time updates on our progressions as we build toward the midterms in 2028 presidential election. Also, please don't forget to take the survey so we can continue to work on putting together the Black Agenda 2028. Ultimately, this is an agenda of issues that affect the Black communities and us as Black Americans in the United States, which we will take to local and federal politicians in order to have them audition for our votes for future elections. Our vote is very powerful, and we need to let these politicians on both sides know that we understand this and that we will have to show us ultimately that they deserve our votes in future elections. To take that survey, make sure you go ahead and log on to www.blackagenda2028.com and just complete the quick 2-minute survey and ultimately tell us what matters most to you. And also, please just make sure that you share the link with as many people in the Black community as you can, because we need as many voices to be heard as we push forward to getting this agenda put together. Again, we'd like to thank you for joining us this evening. Appreciate everybody's time and efforts, and thank you for joining us. We are BA28, and we are out.
It's like very well.